I think the first thing is the debt issue. We have a very severe supply-demand problem, so that they have to sell a quantity of debt that the world is not going to want to buy. And that's a set of circumstances that is imminent. Okay, that's paramount importance. The deficit must go from what will be projected now to be about 7.2% of GDP to about 3% of GDP. Otherwise, there will be a supply-demand problem. Okay, that's a big deal. You are going to see shocking developments in terms of how that's going to be dealt with. Things that may not have happened in our lifetimes, but things that have happened throughout history. So that's an immediate consideration.
Wait,
the interest rate.
What do you mean, austerity? Like that?
There may be restructurings of debt. There may be exerting pressures on countries to own the debt, to buy the debt, political pressures on countries. There may be cutting the payments to some creditor countries off for political reasons and so on. So there may be monetizations of debt. If you look at history and see the repeating of what do countries do when they're in this kind of situation, there are lessons from history that repeat. It's correct that if we can eliminate waste, there's terrible waste in the government, and there's terrible waste in our society, and it's a reality that 60% of the population is relatively unproductive and living on the society. If they don't get to 3% of GDP, a budget deficit of 3% of GDP, we're going to have a problem. Okay? Now, how they do it, that's a different question. They have political problems. I think every member of Congress and the president should say 3% of GDP, and we have a pledge, one way or another, we're going to get to 3% of GDP.
Can they do that without taking us into recession?
Yes, if you look at how that happened in the 1992 to 98 period and so on, there were three influences on this. There's the spending, there's the taxes, and taxes means tax revenue, not tax rates. And then there's also interest rates. And what will happen if they do that right program, you're going to have lower interest rates. One of the biggest effects on their budget deficit is the interest rate. The interest rate cost is about $1 trillion a year, okay? So interest rates have a big effect. If you improve the supply-demand balance, you will lower the interest rates, and you'll also build a confidence